veteran here from Westerlo, Petty Officer, 3rd Class, Richard Stark, who served in the Navy from 1963 to 1967 during the Vietnam conflict. Before you leave, make sure that you also stop up here. He brought some memorabilia for you, but I think one of the most impressive pieces of memorabilia you're going to see is that after 57 years, he still fits in his uniform.
You just missed all the scenery and the fun putting it on. Yeah. And my wife is a good teammate for that. We're going to try to stay away from the notes and go by memory. Here, crank that up. There we go. It's going to make it. There we are. Okay. Born and raised in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. How to walk a city block to see a tree. And I love the country. I absolutely love the country. Probably comes from my mother's side of the family. She was born and raised in a small town in northern Pennsylvania. It's still a small town in Pennsylvania there. But I've always enjoyed the rural section. Probably why I ended up here at Westerlo. I was so drawn to it. Anyway, in 1963, I graduated high school and I was working for a year, and I was looking what to do with my life. But Andrew laid out the things that draw you to the military. But one particular thing drew to me. I went to visit my sister here in Westerlo. She had got married to a fellow in college, and they went to Westerlo. And in the 60s, I looked on a map. I couldn't find Westerlo. But we're here. We're on the map now. But anyway, got up there, and while visiting her, Dwight Haney asked me if I wanted to ride in an airplane. What kid wouldn't turn down a ride in an airplane? Sure. So we took it up. Piper Aztec, twin engine, flying. He let me fly it for a couple minutes, and I was hooked. That was it. It was airplanes for me. And I went back and I started looking around, and I said, how do you get to work doing these anyway? I asked Dwight, and he said, a good place to start would be to look at the military. Air Force, obviously, you work in airplanes and whatnot. Okay, went, checked on the Air Force. Nah, they wouldn't guarantee that I'd work on airplanes. I said, really? Air Force, okay. Went to the Army, no, they wouldn't guarantee I'd work on an airplane. Oh boy, so things are starting to get slim. Oh, well, I'll try the Navy. I asked the Navy, yeah, we'll put it in writing. You can work on airplanes. Whoa, sole American, I'm in. And in August of '63, went down to the proper place there and signed my name away for 4 years. And we were the first company from the East Coast to be sent to the West Coast in San Diego for boot camp. I don't believe that boot camp exists anymore. It's at the end of the international airport there. But the whole new aspect for me, I'd never seen Point Loma and houses built into steep hillsides like that. And then looking out over the bay there, you look right out over the bay toward North Island Air Station. And wow, it was tremendous, great place to be. Except that I had a real changing experience when I was in boot camp. It wasn't bad. I got along with boot camp good, except it was bad against me. I'm 6'5", and I do what my wife tells me to and stand up straight. And I was just a skinny kid at that time, but they had this mock-up ship in boot camp. And it was to teach you the etiquette of Navy operations. You went up and down ladders. You didn't go up and down stairs. You went through hatchways. You didn't go through doors. And everything was done in double time. You ran. Well, at 6'5", when you start running, you don't go through little hatchways very quickly. I'm sorry. I can do hurdles, but that's going up. That's not a problem. But I didn't do that. Pretty soon my shins were black and blue. My head had a couple knots on it, more than it does today even. And I was starting to really question what I had done. So I started asking questions, asked old Salt there, I said, hey, does the Navy have any airplanes that don't land on aircraft carriers? Oh yeah, he said it's those, delivery planes and stuff like that. Oh, patrol squadrons, they're too big, it's a bomber, and but that's not real Navy. Oh, really, okay. Kept that in the back of my mind. 12 weeks later, we're finished boot camp, enjoyed every minute of it, nice and warm. And Great Lakes, by the way, was the normal boot camp. Great Lakes is cold in November. Except for here. I guess this is November now, and we're doing pretty good. But anyway, I finished up there and in boot camp, and they had a list, a wish list. And at the bottom of the wish list was patrol squadrons. Not a ship, patrol squadrons. Signed me up, put my little checkbox in. Didn't know whether I'd get it or not, so wish list. And I did get it. And I was sent off to Memphis, Tennessee to school, 6 months in school there, reciprocating engines, jet engines, hydraulics, electric, you name it. Pretty intense at school. I enjoyed every minute of it. I like mechanical things. And from there, I went back to San Diego, to North Island Naval Air Station for flight training. They told me you're going to be air crew, you're going to a Boeing, excuse me, Boeing, bad name, Lockheed P2V7. And she said there was a picture of it in action. And, that's what you'll be flying in and working on and up there. And so you're going to go to flight school here down in San Diego. Okay. So we went there for several months, and I finished up there and was glad to get a hold of my air crewman wings. And I was headed for Whidbey Island. Whidbey Island, where was that? Found out that it was at the north end of the bay. Seattle's at the south end of, what's that bay? Forgot it already. Anyway, the north end of the bay was Whidbey Island, and north of that is Canada. So got in there and went to work in the mechanic shop on all these P2V airplanes. And grand old time, they said, guess what, 3 months we're shipping out to Japan. Oh, okay, here we go to Japan. So Japan was home base, then Iwakuni, Japan. My son, 35 years later, was stationed at the same place. Anyway, we got to Iwakuni, and you have 12 planes in the squadron. Normally can be more, can be less. But we had 12 planes, and they were divided up 3 planes and a wing. And some were sent to Okinawa, some were sent to Taiwan, some were sent to Punsanut in Saigon, Vietnam, and then there was three at back here at Iwakuni, Japan. Got over there and went down to Taiwan and came back to Okinawa and was laying on a beach. Oh yeah, it's tough duty, by the way. These are hard things, you know. It's not really as easy as it sounds. Planes fly during the day and whatnot, and they would come back in, and if there was a gripe on there or something that had to be done, we worked on it in the evening and nighttime. So the days I had off, they had a beautiful beach there. What am I going to do? Got to take advantage of all these good things. So I was on the beach reading a letter from my parents at home and found out that my mentor, Dwight Haney, had died in a plane helicopter crash in Westerlo, New York. And that was kind of a shock, but I'm certainly thankful for Dwight's directions for me, got me going into aviation there. Finished out our 9 months over in the far Southeast Asia there and around, and went back to Whidbey Island, and that was for refurbishing the squadron, get it ready again to go. When I got back there, they called me in the captain's office, and said, we're starting a new crew 4, and we would like you to be the plane captain. I fell over. I said, these guys, people crazy? They're gonna put my name on the side of an airplane and give me full responsibility for maintenance of this thing? Well, don't turn it down, keep going. And so I did. And as a plane captain, we had a good crew 4, and trained the rest of that year, and then we were off to overseas, back to Iwakuni. Visited all those lovely places again, Okinawa, Taiwan, and also Tan Son Nhut, Vietnam. It's the main air base here at Saigon. I'll give you a relation of one. We would fly out dead east from Saigon down, you get to Long Tao, which is on the coast, and you either went north track and went up the coast toward North Vietnam, swing around, come back, or you went south down over the Delta and around all the way to Cambodia and come back up around. And I had long legs on that bomber. We could be, I think I've been close to 15 hours in that thing, so we can stay up a while. As we were going, we had a south track that day. We're headed south, picked up a trawler. We're sure of it, come down, photographed it, checked it. They said, boy, that thing's been slowly coming down the coast. We've had others report that one. And with that, as we passed it, went down, it made a run. It was down close enough to where it wanted to go, I guess, and it made a run for inside the 20-mile zone toward the Delta. Well, the coast, we notified the Coast Guard via radar, we could see it going, and they were on chasing it. We continued on, came back on our track, came in time to see it. It had beached on the, right on the beach, on a peninsula, a little peninsula stuck out of the jungle there, and the VC were trying to get on it, and we got to sit back and watch the war go on for quite a while. The aircraft carrier sent jets out, and they supported the Coast Guard there, who had set the ship on fire, literally with air fire, and then watched the old Sky Raider aircraft. Sky Raiders were prop-driven, single-engine Grumman attack aircraft. They weren't really designed as fighters. They were big, but they could carry a lot of munitions, and they certainly demonstrated that day. Never forgot it. Fabulous aircraft. But anyway, we watched that show. They held the VC off into the jungle. The Coast Guard come in and towed it back off with high tide out. And I found out they towed it up to Saigon, which is where we were billeted. About a week or so later, we got some time off, and we went down to the port there in Saigon, and there it was. Sure enough, got pictures of it. So naturally, young guys, we jumped on board. Let's see if we can find some mementos. Reached into the box and pulled out and said, oh my goodness, that's a mortar shell. Well, that would look good on a desk, that whole paper weight. Then reason did take over. Relax, Cheryl. And I put it back in the box, and we reached for something a little smaller. That's a Chinese, has Chinese writing on the back of it. It's a 50 caliber shell. And the reason I took it, that's what they shoot at us with. Well, that's one they didn't get to shoot at us. I've got it. And Sheriff relaxed, I drilled a hole in the bottom, all the powder's gone out of there. We come back, finished our tour again, come back to Whidbey Island, spent better part of another year there at Whidbey, flying up and down the West Coast, doing track work. These patrol planes are flying right now, East Coast, West Coast, and all over stations. Those are stationed overseas. Tracking submarines, electronic warfare. We do it all on that. And as you can see, that airplane demonstrating it was close to that ground. And during the day, not the ground, the ocean, we could fly down to about 200 feet above the ground, above the ocean. And at night, we limited it to about 500 feet. And it gets awful black out there sometimes. And it was a great experience for me. I learned a lot. I parted company with the United States Navy on August 27th, 1967. And I come back and decided the GI Bill, which Andrew mentioned, was something that I needed to do. And I went to Teterboro School of Aeronautics, and after 2 years there, or not quite 2 years, I received my Federal airframe and power plant license to work on airplanes, on engines and the fuselages, and all the systems. From there, I went back and went to flight school. I picked up all my licenses to fly, and what is good about it, the good Lord has allowed me to use these things in my career. So I not only like the Navy for what it saw and coming home, and I thank the Lord I came home from the war, and then I came home to a family, close ties to our family, and it was good. I had no problems coming back into, I guess you'd say, normal civilization here. But anyway, went to work in the aviation industry, and in the aviation industry, in about 8 years, I liked general aviation, smaller, aviation, excuse me, was good also. But that, in about 7 years, there was liability issues with planes, and the major companies closed down: Piper, Beechcraft, and Cessna. And they literally shut down their single engine lines. And I could see that coming. And so I, fortunately, right down here about 100 yards, you'll see a big red Morton building garage. And that's an aftermath. We lived there and raised our family here. And I'll say right now that my wife of 54 years, I met right in this church that we're in here. And my sister had always, when I came to visit her, had brought me to this church. And one Sunday, this is back in 60s, about 68, I guess, 67, 68, somewhere in there. She introduced me on a Sunday morning to Miss Candy Reynolds, and she works up here at Annie Reels. I said, oh. And so after a while, it took me 2 years to convince her that it was, but I convinced her. So 54 years later, we're still here, still attending this church, and we thank God for it. Candy and I have 3 boys. Stephen is home with the Lord in heaven. He died at 9 months. Ken lives here in town. His wife is here with us this morning, and they've given Candy and I 3 wonderful young ladies, 2 in college, 1 finishing high school. My other son, David, is a pilot for UPS and lives down in Louisville, Kentucky. Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, and flies for UPS there. He has 5 children. Amy is his wife, and he has 3 boys and 2 girls. So when I look back, Westerlo, what's it done for me? A lot. It's a great place to raise a family. It's been good. So not only did I get to use my Navy career, but I also got to live in a nice, great place to raise families. So Westerlo, what I like to do is just close, unless I read something wrong here. I'd be remiss if I failed to publicly thank my Lord and my God for bringing me home from the war and to Westerlo. I came home with good habits I learned in the Navy, but also with some habits that I was not proud of. I found it very difficult to get rid of these habits. On a Sunday evening in 1968, I repented of my behavior and prayed and asked God to come into my life and take over. He did. And I praise God for that and for the good life that He's given me here in Westerlo. Thank you.